The galaxy was vast and full of voices. Among them one stood out, the voice of the Galactic Council, speaking with certainty and pride. They looked down on Earth, a small blue planet spinning quietly on the edge of a forgotten star system. To them, Earth was nothing more than a primitive world, stuck in its past, far behind the great civilizations that ruled the stars. Their words echoed through the grand halls of the Council's floating palace. Cold and dismissive, Earth has no place in galactic affairs, the Council's elder declared, his voice thick with disdain. Their technology is crude, their culture simple. They cannot threaten us. Around him, other leaders nodded in agreement. The Council had watched Earth for centuries, tracking its slow progress. They had sent scouts and spies. What they found confirmed their beliefs. A world still struggling with its own wars, still reaching for the stars, but never quite touching them. But they were wrong. Beneath Earth's calm surface, a secret was growing, a fleet unlike any other. Hidden deep within the planet's oceans and deserts were shipyards and factories, silent but alive with energy. Engineers worked tirelessly, building sleek warships and fast scout vessels, armed with weapons and shields far beyond what any alien race expected. The fleet was a promise, a whisper of power waiting to roar. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship Sentinel, watching the stars through thick armored glass. His eyes were steady, his expression unreadable, but inside, a storm raged. He had spent years preparing for this moment, training his crew, gathering intelligence, and perfecting every detail. This was the day Earth would no longer be ignored. "Admiral," Captain Vale said softly, breaking the silence. "Report ready for hyperspace jump." Kane nodded once. Could begin the countdown. One by one, the vessels powered up. The hum of engines grew louder, filling the corridors with a steady pulse like a heartbeat. The fleet was small compared to the great armadas of the Council, but it was precise. Every ship was fast, every weapon calibrated to strike hard, and fast in the Council's capital, the news came like a shockwave. Sensors detected an unknown fleet jumping into their space without warning. Alarms blared, officers scrambled to their stations, and messages raced across the command network. "Unknown fleet entering Sector 642, the lieutenant reported, voice tight. No identification, no communication. The Council commanders exchanged worried glances. "Earth?" one asked, disbelief clear in his tone. "That's impossible." But the fleet was real. Dark shapes moved against the stars, cutting through patrol lines and evading detection with ease. The Council's forces were caught unprepared, their confidence shaken. Back on the Sentinel, Kane stood firm. "This is our moment. We show them. Earth is not what they think." Ready weapons. The fleet surged forward, engines roaring as they closed the distance to the nearest Council outpost. Alien ships scrambled to respond, but the humans moved like shadows, striking quickly before disappearing into the void. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Shields flickered and failed. The Council's forces found themselves outmatched by tactics they had never seen in the command center. The Council's elder clenched his fists. "They're stronger than we thought," he admitted quietly. "We misjudged them." A hush fell over the chamber as the truth sank in. Earth was no longer a primitive world. It was a force quiet, deadly, and just beginning to fight back. The galaxy would never be the same. The shock of Earth's fleet arriving without warning rippled through the galaxy like a sudden storm. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their place and power, now scrambled to understand what they faced. On every world under their rule, leaders and soldiers alike whispered in fear and disbelief. The primitive planet they had mocked was no longer hidden, no longer powerless. It was a threat. In the vastness of space, near the edge of the Council's territory, the first true encounter took place. The human fleet had quietly slipped into the outer system known as Velissa Sector, vital for the Council's supply lines. In military movements, it was guarded by a fleet of patrol ships, sleek and armed, ready to protect their space at all costs. The alien commanders had received reports of unusual energy signatures, but dismissed them as sensor glitches. They had never imagined what was coming. Admiral Kane, aboard the Sentinel, watched the enemy vessels with calm focus. His crew prepared silently, every movement practiced and precise. Unlike the Council forces, the humans had trained for years in stealth, surprise, and speed. Their ships were equipped with advanced cloaking devices, and their weapons could strike before the enemy even realized they were under attack. Contact confirmed. Captain Vale said, voice steady, enemy fleet ahead, 6 cruisers, 2 frigates. They have us outnumbered, but not outmatched. Kane's eyes narrowed. Prepare disruptor pulses. We hit their communications first. Silence their calls for help. The human ships shifted into attack formation, sleek silhouettes cutting through the darkness like knives. Without warning, the first pulse erupted, sending a wave of electromagnetic energy toward the enemy. Alien sensors flickered and died. Their communications went silent. Panic spread quickly among their ranks. The Council's patrol fleet scrambled to organize a defense, but it was already too late. The humans struck with lightning speed, targeting the engines and weapon systems of the cruisers. Explosions bloomed against the stars as ships lost power and drifted helplessly. The human fleet moved like a deadly dance, siege strike precise. Each withdrawal calculated. In the command bridge of the largest cruiser, Captain Siller shouted orders to his crew. Return fire. Target their command ship. Lasers and missiles flew, cutting through the void with deadly intent. But the human ships were faster, dodging and weaving, their shields absorbing blows that would have shattered lesser vessels. The battle was over in minutes. Several alien ships lay burning, drifting aimlessly. The rest retreated, broken and terrified. Back on the Sentinel, Kane allowed himself a brief smile. They believed Earth was weak. They thought we were easy prey. They were wrong. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. The Council's propaganda machine struggled to contain the damage. Official statements called it a minor skirmish, a fluke caused by faulty sensors. But behind closed doors, the truth was far more disturbing. Earth's fleet had proven it could fight, and it was willing to dot in secret chambers deep within the Council's capital. The leaders met in emergency session. Their faces were grim, shadows cast by flickering holoscreens, showing the ruins of the battle. This changes everything, one elder said quietly. We cannot ignore Earth anymore. Another added, they have technology beyond what we estimated. Their ships are faster, their weapons more powerful. We face a threat unlike any before. Yet amid their fear was confusion. How had Earth developed such strength without detection? Where had these ships come from? And most importantly, what did they want? Meanwhile, in the hidden shipyards on Earth, the fleet prepared for its next move. Admiral Kane knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and the Council would come for them with everything it had. But humans were ready to fight not just for survival, but for respect. Captain Vale stood beside Kane, her eyes sharp. We've made our point. But now, we need to strike where it hurts most. The Council's supply lines. Kane nodded. We take away their resources. We cut their legs from under them. Then we show them the true power of Earth. As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace once more, the galaxy held its breath. The arrival of Earth's warriors was no accident. It was a challenge, and the Council would have to answer. The stars around the sector blazed with the fire of war. The human fleet, small but lethal, had struck deep into Council space, into the vital system of Varnes, a key hub for the Empire's resources and command. The alien forces caught off guard just days before were now desperate to regroup and stop this new threat before it tore their empire apart. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, his eyes fixed on the swirling battle map. Ships darted like angry fireflies across the display, some exploding in brilliant bursts of light, others weaving in tight formations to fend off enemy attacks. Every decision could mean victory or destruction. Captain Vale, Kane said, voice steady despite the chaos. Status report. Vale's fingers flew over her console. Our strike teams are disabling their resource depots and fuel stations. Enemy reinforcements are arriving slower than expected, but they're sending heavy cruisers and fighter squadrons to block our path. Good, Kane replied. Keep pressure on their supply lines. Without fuel and weapons, they're nothing. Below decks, the soldiers prepared for ground assaults on key installations. These were not the frightened humans of old, but warriors, hardened by years of conflict, trained to strike fast and vanish before the enemy could respond. Their mission was clear: disrupt, destroy, and destabilize. Meanwhile, the Council's commanders convened in a fortified war room on Varney's Prime. The tension was palpable. Generals shouted orders, their voices rising over the constant buzz of alarms. The once confident Council now faced a foe unlike any other, people they had once dismissed as primitive, but who now threatened their very existence. "We cannot allow Earth's forces to take this system," one general growled, slamming his fist on the table. "Varney's falls, the whole empire is at risk." Council Admiral Tresser leaned forward, fingers steepled. "Then we strike hard and fast. Bring every cruiser, every fighter squadron to bear. We'll crush these invaders before they can dig in." But deep inside, even the most loyal commanders felt doubt. The humans fought with a strange, fierce intelligence. Their tactics were unpredictable, their technology advanced. Each encounter left alien forces more battered and uncertain. Back on the Sentinel, Kane's face was a mask of calm determination. He knew the stakes. This was no longer a raid. It was a campaign. The survival of Earth, the future of humanity. Among the stars depended on winning here as the battle raged. A new figure entered the scene, human commander shrouded in mystery, known only by her call sign, Ghost. No one knew her real name or origins. Some whispered she was a former Special Forces leader. Others said she was a genius strategist who could read enemy moves before they happened. Ghost led a squadron of elite fighters that slipped through enemy lines, like shadows. Her pilots struck supply convoys and communication relays with deadly precision. Time and again, the Council's forces found their plans unraveling under her assault. One evening, as the battle's fury momentarily lulled, Kane stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. Vale joined him silently. "She's incredible," Vale said softly. "Ghost's tactics are turning the tide." Kane nodded slowly. "She's more than that. She's a symbol. The galaxy will soon know Earth has come to fight, and we are not afraid." Suddenly alarms blared again. A new threat approached: a massive Council dreadnought, the Obsidian Flame, warship of legend and terror. It moved like a dark storm through the void, its weapons bristling, its shields nearly impenetrable. Kane's jaw tightened. This fight is far from over. As the dreadnought loomed closer, the human fleet prepared for its most dangerous battle. Yet the future of Earth, the pride of humanity, and the fate of the galaxy all balanced on the edge of a blade. The shadow of the Obsidian Flame stretched across the battlefield like a death sentence. Its enormous hull blotted out stars, its weapons bristling with power that could crush entire fleets in moments. For centuries, the dreadnought was the symbol of the Council's unmatched strength. The nightmare that made entire systems surrender. Before a shot was fired, now it was coming straight for the human fleet. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, feeling the weight of the moment. Around him, his crew worked with practiced calm, but beneath the surface, tension crackled like electricity. The battle was shifting. The Council was sending its most feared weapon, and the humans had no choice but to stand and fight. "Status," Kane demanded. Captain Vale's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "The Obsidian Flame is powering up its main cannon. Shields holding, but not for long." Kane's jaw clenched. "All ships, prepare for heavy engagement. Ghost Squadron, you're on intercept. Disrupt their firing sequence at all costs." In the dark void, Ghost and her fighters streaked forward like comets, weaving through laser fire and missile barrages. Their mission was clear, but deadly. Get close enough to disable the dreadnought's cannon before it could unleash destruction. The dreadnought's weapons fired in terrifying bursts, cutting swaths of death through the human lines. Ships exploded in fireballs, debris drifting silently in the vacuum. But Ghost Squadron was relentless. striking with precision and disappearing before the Council's gunners could react. On the bridge of the Obsidian Flame, Admiral Vadrin watched the chaos with cold satisfaction. "They fight hard," he murmured. "But this is only the beginning. The Council will not fall." But even Vadrin could not hide the flicker of doubt in his eyes. The humans fought with something beyond technology, something raw and unpredictable. They had seen the fight on Earth's homeworld. They had heard the stories of human resilience. Now, they faced it firsthand. Back on the Sentinel, Kane gritted his teeth as Ghost Squadron reported success. "Main cannon disrupted," Vale said. "They have a small window before it comes back online. Then we take that window." Kane said, "All ships, concentrate fire on their weapon systems. Make it count." The fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Lasers tore through the dreadnought's armor, targeting its weapon arrays and engine cores. Explosions rippled across the giant ship, and for a moment, the Obsidian Flame seemed vulnerable. But then, with a deafening roar, the dreadnought's secondary weapons flared to life, sweeping the human ships with deadly beams. One by one, fighters and cruisers were torn apart. The battle hung on a knife's edge, amid the chaos. Kane's mind flashed to Earth, the world that had been written off. The planet that had hidden this fleet in silence for so long. The people who had survived wars and rebuilds, who had refused to bow to the galaxy's rulers. This fight was more than survival. It was a declaration. Suddenly, a new alert rang through the Sentinel. "Incoming transmission, Admiral." Kane activated the screen. A shadowed figure appeared, a tall, pale-skinned alien, his eyes sharp and filled with warning. "I am Dr. Solari," the figure said, "a scientist once trusted by the Council. I have come to offer you knowledge, and a choice." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Speak." "The Council hides a weapon," Solari continued. "One capable of ending this war in a single strike. But it is unstable, dangerous even to its own. If you wish to survive, you must decide. Seek this weapon and risk everything, or find another path." The bridge fell silent. The fate of millions now balanced on this unknown threat. Kane knew the battle was far from over, and the true war had only just begun. The message from Dr. Solari lingered in Admiral Kane's mind like a dark shadow. A weapon so powerful it could end the war or destroy everything. The choice was clear, yet terrifying. Pursue the weapon and risk annihilation, or fight with what they had, risking defeat. Kane gathered his senior officers in the strategy room aboard the Sentinel. The holographic map of the galaxy shimmered between them, showing the Council's territory and the paths their fleet had carved. Each blink represented battles won and lost. But the war was far from over. "We have two options," Kane said, voice steady but heavy. "One, chase this weapon Solari spoke of. If it exists, and we can control it, we might end the war quickly. But it could be a trap. 2, we continue to cut the Council's supply lines and weaken them slowly. Safer, but it will take longer and cost more lives." Captain Vale looked grim. "If the weapon is real, the Council will use it on us if we don't find it." "First," agreed, Kane replied, "we cannot ignore the threat." The decision was made. The fleet would split. One part would continue the strike campaign, while Kane led a small team to seek out the weapon's location. The risk was immense. But the future of humanity depended on bold moves. Days passed as the fleet moved through hostile space. Kane's group tracked down clues hidden in forgotten outposts and secret research stations, gathering scraps of data that led them closer to the weapon's resting place. The tension was thick. Any mistake could mean destruction. Meanwhile, the Council was not idle. Admiral Vadrin marshaled his forces for a final counterattack. His dreadnoughts and cruisers moved like predators closing in. The Council's soldiers believed in their cause, but fear of the humans had spread. Some questioned if their leaders had truly underestimated Earth. Back on the Sentinel, Kane's team arrived at an ancient space station orbiting a dead star. The station was a relic of a long-forgotten war, dark and silent. They found signs of hurried evacuation and strange technology pulsing with power. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Council's forces had tracked them down. Battle erupted within the cold halls of the station. Blaster fire echoed, and shadows danced on the walls as Kane and his team fought to protect the weapon's secrets. Kane moved with precision, his years of training sharp. His thoughts flashed to Earth, his home, his people, the reason he fought with such ferocity. This weapon was more than a tool, it was hope. After a brutal fight, Kane's team secured the control room. There, hidden behind layers of security, lay the weapon, a device capable of sending devastating energy pulses across entire star systems. But its power was unstable. Misuse could trigger catastrophic chain reactions. Kane stared at the weapon's core, realizing the terrible responsibility it carried. The war could end today, or the galaxy could be destroyed. As the Council's reinforcements closed in, Kane made his choice. We take it, but only to protect it, not to use it lightly. Back in space, the main fleet engaged in fierce combat with the Council's forces. The skies burned with laser fire and missile barrages. Human ships fought with fierce determination, their losses heavy, but spirits unbroken. The battle raged on, but in the heart of the conflict, a new understanding grew. The galaxy was changing. Earth was no longer primitive. Earth was a power that would shape the stars. The battle had reached its peak. The skies above the alien capital glowed with fire and smoke, fleets clashing in waves of destruction. The human fleet, though battered, pushed forward with relentless force. Every ship carried the hope of Earth, a planet once dismissed as primitive, now the heart of a new power rising among the stars. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, the ancient weapon secured safely in the cargo hold. The device hummed with unstable energy, a sleeping giant waiting to be awakened. The weight of his decision pressed down on him. To use it would mean ending the war, but at a cost no one could predict. "Admiral," Captain Vale said quietly, "we've broken through the outer defenses. The capital is within reach." Kane nodded, eyes sharp. "Prepare the final assault, but hold the weapon. We fight to win, not to destroy everything." As the fleet closed in, the Council's forces fought desperately to defend their homeworld. The capital's towers, once symbols of power and control, now lay in ruins. Citizens fled or hid, watching as the war they thought impossible unfolded. Before their eyes, in the chaos, Kane's thoughts drifted to his brother. The brother he had lost in the purge years ago, and the brother he had found again in the shadows of this war. Their bond had been broken and reforged in fire. Oh, it was stronger than ever. The final battle was brutal. Fighters swarmed like angry hornets, lasers cutting through the void. Cruisers exploded in cascades of sparks and flame. The Sentinel led the charge, Kane's commands calm but fierce. Then, as the last line of defense fell, Kane sent a message across the galaxy, not of hatred or revenge, but of a new beginning. Earth was called primitive. His voice echoed through every channel, but we came to remind the galaxy, strength is not just in power, but in will. We fight for peace, for respect, for the future. The Council's leaders surrendered. The war was over. In the days that followed, treaties were signed, old enemies became uneasy allies, and the galaxy began to heal.
Ow.
Earth took its place. Not as a forgotten world, but as a beacon of hope and strength, and in the quiet moments. Kane looked to the stars, knowing the fight had changed everything, for Earth, for the galaxy, and for the generations yet to come. The fleet had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same.